Imagine spending an entire afternoon shaping a piece of wood by hand, curving it, thinning one edge, testing its balance against your palm, only to throw it as hard as you can into open grassland and watch it disappear. No animal in sight, no target, just you throwing your work away on purpose over and over. That should sound insane, but the real answer is far stranger. Somewhere in ancient Australia, and separately in ancient Europe, and separately again in ancient Egypt, different groups of humans who never met each other arrived at the same strange decision. Some of their throwing weapons shouldn't hit anything at all. They should fly out, curve through the air, and come straight back to the hand that threw them. Not by accident, by design. Archaeologist Pavel Valdenovak led the excavation of a curved mammoth tusk boomerang found in Obłazova Cave in southern Poland, dated to roughly 30,000 years old. It wasn't a hunting weapon built for maximum force. Its shape and balance suggest something closer to a returning design, meaning whoever carved it had already discovered, through pure observation, that a correctly shaped object thrown correctly wouldn't just fly. It would loop. Why would anyone bother? A rock thrown at an animal either hits or misses. Either way, you walk over, pick it up, and try again. That's simple. A returning boomerang solves a problem nobody was forced to solve. So why solve it? Short sentence. Because walking is expensive, and a thrown weapon that comes home saves you the trip. Think about what hunting actually costs a human body. Every step spent retrieving a missed throw is a step not spent stalking prey, not spent resting, not spent watching for danger. In open, exposed grassland, wandering 50 meters to pick up a stick you just threw isn't free. It costs energy, it costs time, and it costs safety, since a hunter distracted by retrieving a weapon is a hunter not watching the horizon for predators of their own. Multiply that cost across dozens of throws in a single hunting trip, across hundreds of hunting trips in a single year, across a lifetime spent depending on that same routine, and the wasted energy stops looking small. A boomerang that returns removes that cost entirely. Throw it, watch it curve, catch it, throw again. The weapon becomes reusable in real time, not just reusable eventually. This is the part that should surprise you. Many returning boomerangs throughout history were never meant to kill anything directly. In Aboriginal Australia, where returning boomerang technology reached extraordinary sophistication, lighter returning boomerangs were often used to frighten flocks of water birds into flying low across hidden nets, turning the weapon into a tool for herding rather than a tool for striking. The much heavier work of actually killing large game fell to separate, non-returning throwing sticks, built thicker and heavier, specifically because they were never designed to loop back. Two different tools, solving two different problems, both carved from the same basic idea, and both requiring an intimate understanding of exactly how wood behaves when it spins through the air. Returning boomerangs also served a purpose that had nothing to do with hunting at all: practice. A weapon that comes back to your hand lets you throw it 50 times in an afternoon without ever losing it in tall grass or breaking it against a rock. That single feature turns a returning boomerang into a training tool, something a young hunter could use over and over to build accuracy, timing, and arm strength long before they were ever trusted with a real hunting weapon. In a world without practice ranges or replacement equipment on demand, a self-returning object solved the practice problem in a way nothing else could. Egypt adds another layer to this pattern. Inside the tomb of Tutankhamun, discovered by archaeologist Howard Carter in 1922, researchers found dozens of curved throwing sticks buried alongside the young pharaoh, some shaped for hunting birds along the Nile and others balanced closely enough to suggest a returning design. Two civilizations with no contact, separated by an ocean and a language and thousands of years, both arrived at curved throwing weapons, and some of both cultures' craftsmen apparently pushed further, chasing the harder, less obviously useful version that came back. So how do you even discover that a curved stick can fly back to you? You don't discover it in a single afternoon. Physicist Felix Hess spent years formally studying the aerodynamics of returning boomerangs, publishing research explaining that each arm of the object generates lift as it spins, similar to a small rotating wing. Because the boomerang is also tumbling end over end while moving forward, one side of it slices through the air faster than the other at any given moment. That imbalance creates a sideways force called precession, and precession is what slowly bends the boomerang's straight-line flight into the wide, looping arc that eventually returns it to the thrower. None of that would have meant anything to the person carving wood in a cave 40,000 years ago. They had no words for lift or precession. What they had was repetition, patient enough to notice a pattern most people would have given up on chasing. Here's the twist most people miss entirely. A boomerang that fails to return isn't just a bad throw, it's a bad boomerang. Getting the shape wrong even slightly, too thick on one edge, curved a few degrees off, unbalanced in weight from tip to tip, and the object either won't generate enough lift to curve at all, or it will spin wildly out of control and crash early. The tolerance for error is narrow, narrower than most modern people would guess, for an object made entirely by hand with stone tools. Building a returning boomerang wasn't a single insight. It was hundreds of small corrections, discovered the same way an engineer today discovers the right shape for an airplane wing, through structured trial, careful observation, and enough patience to try again after every failure. Ancient toolmakers were running informal aerodynamics experiments millennia before anyone would build a wind tunnel, adjusting one variable at a time without ever having a word for the variable they were adjusting. There's a reason this technology kept independently reappearing across the world instead of spreading from one single origin point. The physics involved doesn't care about culture, geography, or timeline. A curved, asymmetrical object thrown with the right spin behaves the same way whether it was carved in the Egyptian Delta, the Australian outback, or a Polish cave during an ice age. Whenever humans anywhere ran into the exact same problem, needing to extend the reach and force of a single throwing arm, some of them eventually stumbled onto some version of the exact same aerodynamic solution. The boomerang wasn't one invention. It was the same discovery, made again and again, by people separated by oceans and thousands of years, because the air itself kept teaching the same lesson. Building one required something else too, patience passed down between people. A boomerang correctly shaped is nearly impossible to reverse engineer just by holding it, especially long before anyone could measure, diagram, or photograph its exact curvature. The only way this knowledge survived was through direct teaching, someone who already understood the balance sitting beside someone who didn't, correcting their grip, their throwing angle, their choice of wood, across seasons, maybe years. Every functioning, returning boomerang in the ancient world is quiet proof that a teaching relationship existed somewhere behind it. You can still feel a distant echo of this obsession today. Modern sport boomerang competitions exist, with throwers competing for accuracy, maximum time aloft, and the tightest possible return to a fixed spot, chasing the exact same balance ancient tool makers were chasing with nothing but stone tools and careful eyes. The current world record for time aloft on a single throw stretches well past a minute and a half. A returning boomerang held in the air by nothing but the same precession forces Felix Hess once measured in a lab. Engineers designing drone rotors and airplane propellers are, in a real sense, working the same problem your ancestors solved by hand, translating rotation and airflow into controlled, predictable motion, just with wind tunnels and computer models instead of 40,000 years of trial and error. What does this tell you about the people who came before you? It's easy to picture ancient humans as purely reactive, driven only by hunger, fear, and whatever was directly in front of them. A weapon that flies away and deliberately comes back doesn't fit that picture. It requires imagining a future moment, the return, before it happens. It requires testing an idea against reality over and over without any promise of success. It requires teaching someone else a skill that offers no benefit until it's fully mastered. That's not a species reacting to the world. That's a species already experimenting with it, refining tools for efficiency and elegance, not just survival. Imagine spending an entire afternoon shaping a piece of wood by hand, only to throw it away on purpose. It sounds insane until you realize the entire point was for it to come home again. That instinct to build something that returns to you instead of something you have to chase is one of the oldest signs that your ancestors weren't just surviving the world around them. They were already trying to work with it.